Noah,
Yes.
what have you been watching?
Well, that is a very good question because, as all of you probably know, we watch a lot of stuff throughout the week, and we can only pick just one thing for this segment each, and I actually watched this last week, but due to the whole Avengers extravaganza we did, I didn't want to touch on it because I didn't want to bring the mood of that episode down with how bad episode 3 of season 8, The Long Night, was of Game of
Dang.
Thrones. Now, I know I'm going to touch on the season as a whole, probably as a series as a whole. I don't know exactly what we're going to do, if it's just going to be season 8 or the whole series.
Hmm.
Um, in a later episode. But I just really want to discuss this particular episode here. Like I said, I shied away from it last week due to the whole Avengers thing, but I will hide this no more. I mean, man, if you don't know, I mean, this series has been building up this story of these Night Walkers and this Night King. And that's kind of been their whole slogan of winter's coming. And by winter, I mean they mean the Night Walkers and the Night King. And they're building up this massive battle to end all battles. And they set it up great. I mean, I'm going into this battle seriously wondering if I initially thought, man, Winterfell's gonna fall, the Night King's gonna win, and they're gonna march down to King's Landing and take over all everything. They built them up that well that they were that scary of an enemy, and you almost never saw them. Um, and this series has been building it up ever since the first 10 minutes of the very first episode when we first saw that Night Walker. Um, they've been building this up 8 seasons, and man, this is just talk about sheer disappointment. I was furious at this
Holy
episode,
cow.
partly because it just seemed out of nowhere, and for me, I'd never really. I mean, sure, some Game of Thrones episodes are better than others. It's like that with every TV show, right? But I've never. Honestly, this is probably one of the worst episodes of Game of Thrones that I've watched. And the one of the biggest driving forces to me saying that is that you couldn't even see most of the battle. The way that this was shot in the cinematography for it, it was so dark and you just couldn't see it. And I saw this thing that the cinematographer posted, and I mean, no disrespect to him, because I mean he has a great eye, obviously. I mean, he's proven himself, but I mean, his defense as to why the backlash from people not being able to see this is his defense was their TVs weren't calibrated, and for me, that's not an excuse. That's you reaching for literally anything you could find. He should have been like, listen, I mean, it was a move that I wanted to make. I thought it would work. It didn't. Um, if he said that, I would have been fine. I would have been like, hey man, uh, all right, just you'll get him next time, buddy. But yeah, you just couldn't see anything, and initially I started it. It was a little light outside, so I was like, all right, I'm gonna pause this episode. I'm gonna come back when it's pitch black. Still couldn't see anything. It and it's just it was so frustrating because there's so many moments in here that I felt could have salvaged it a little bit in terms of the action and the actual battles, but you just can't see them. Like there's a sequence with Daenerys and Jon. They're both riding dragons, and the Night King's riding the dragon that he killed and resurrected, and you just can't see the whole thing. And the parts I saw were cool, and I wanted more, but you couldn't see anything.
this
Um,
whole this whole review is I couldn't see it. And this part was cool, but I couldn't see it.
yeah, and I was just about to say, I mean, besides that, I could talk about that all day, but I'm going to move on to the other stuff that makes this episode suck. Uh,
Wow. You really hate this episode.
First of all, this episode is not logical at all in the way battles are fought. And I hate to say this because Game of Thrones, at least to me, has always taken, it's done fantasy as realistic as possible, and I really like the battles that they've had in it. But this one, I mean, they put their little catapults or trebuchets in front of everybody for one. So they're in the front. They put their cavalry in the front, and they send all their cavalry out, all the Dothraki. They all just die within the first literally 3 minutes of the episode, and you're left like, okay, that was a waste. It doesn't hit you like, oh my gosh, all these Dothraki just died. You're just like, okay, you didn't start the episode very well. Let's see what you can do. And then all the dead start charging at Winterfell, and they just start retreating. All the Winterfell soldiers just start retreating, and they just set this trench on fire, and it seemingly stops these dead that were coming after them. And then there's just this totally crazy sequence when a couple of the dead just literally fall on top of the trench and create a bridge, and they just bust into the door and completely start massacring everyone. And it's just, they try to break up this battle, which I get is what you need. You can't just do action straight up for an hour and a half, because that's all this episode was a battle. It was an hour and a half battle. And they try to break this up by like, all right, we have the Dothraki charge, then we have the Winterfell soldiers take on a bunch of casualties. They start retreating, give them a break, and then Nightwalkers are gonna get across the trench, break in. Then they try to break it up in these segments, and it doesn't work. I mean, from shot to shot, you're just like, okay, okay, okay. And it's partially because you have all these iconic characters that you've been with, and this is what bugs me the most. The plot armor in this episode is insane. I can honestly think of no more than really 3 characters that die in this movie that they killed. And they build this up for 8 years. And they have 25 main characters that are in this battle. And they're only killing 3 of them. So that just doesn't add up for me. That seems like your focus wasn't on this battle, and you just completely put all your focus down to what they're gonna do in King's Landing after this. So that was it's just annoying as kind of a fan to see that, especially after the fan service that we got from Endgame. This was very lackluster compared to that. And then the one last thing I will say is, without trying to give out spoilers as to how that episode ends, there's a sequence in this where the Night King is about to do this thing, and this main character, literally out of nowhere, jumps over this ring of his, I guess generals, other Night Walkers, all the generals that are surrounding him. So there's no like open area. They're surrounding him, and this character jumps over, and the Night King turns around and catches her, and she has a dagger in her hand because she wants to kill him. And she literally pulls a Rey from Star Wars. You know that battle with the Royal Guards after Snoke was killed?
Mm-hmm.
And there's a scene when Rey kind of gets caught by this Royal Guard, and like Kylo throws her lightsaber, and she catches it with one hand, drops it down into her other free hand, and ignites the lightsaber, and it stabs the guard.
Yeah.
Literally, that exact sequence happened in this, and it was just the perfect bow to an awful show. That I mean, I don't know what else. It was just disappointing.
What would you give this episode of Game of Thrones?
I give it a straight 1. I don't even know the what's our slogan
Wow.
for 1. It's just
He ain't gonna be a Rush Hour 3.
you couldn't see anything going on. None of the action made sense. None of the logic of the battle made sense. And the ending was just ugh. It just wasn't. It didn't feel original. It felt straight copied from Star Wars. It felt like all they were building up. They were building up all these characters like Jon Snow, and these other ones, and they completely backdoor them and give it to someone else. It's just like I don't know. I don't even know. I don't know. I mean, this doesn't. I guess depending on how the rest of the season goes, I'm okay with them straight. This is them basically telling us their focus wasn't on the Night King basically at all. It was on King's Landing and Sir. But they could potentially salvage that if they wrap it up well. I mean, I haven't seen episode 4 yet. I did see this leak of there's a scene when there is
With the Starbucks cup.
an actual Starbucks cup on a table.
I
So
saw
it really
the
sounds like
screenshot of it.
yeah. I mean, is Game of Thrones going downhill, guys? Oh man,
It's just because everyone in the world is watching it right now. That's
I know.
why.
I just don't understand how you. It just was so disappointing and so out of character. Where I was just kind of like shocked, like you haven't performed this bad for me before. I don't get it. But we'll see what happens.
All right.